Your next topic, you have types of dividend policy. Now in your types of dividend policy, you have stable dividend policy. Okay, in your stable dividend policy, it is basically your policy, dividend policy is very stable. It refers to consistency or lack of variability in the stream of dividends payments. In other words, it means payment of minimum amount of dividend every time regularly, whether irrespective of whether the company has profits or whether the company does not have profits. Okay. Now, under your stable or dividend policy, you have constant stable dividend per share. Now, constant stable dividend per share is basically a fixed amount of money fixed amount will be there per share. That is, suppose it is rupees 2 as dividend, and the face value of the share is rupees 10. Now, the level of earnings is not going to affect because the dividend policy or the dividend amount of percentage is fixed. It is constant, okay, irrespective of the earnings. Next is the stable or constant payout. Constant payout is nothing but the ratio of dividends to earnings. Okay, the ratio of dividend to earning is called as payout ratio. In other words, dividend per share is divided by earnings per share. Okay, dividend per share is divided by earning per share to get dividend payout ratio. Now, this particular policy has a fixed percentage of earnings are paid as dividends are each year, okay, irrespective of the continuous fluctuations in the earnings, fixed amount is paid. Now, next is stable rupee dividend plus extra dividend. Now, as you are getting a stable dividend also, in case if the company is, minimum dividend is paid as per the amount is fixed, but also there'll be certain amount of additional dividend which will be paid based on the if the company is making excessive profits. Okay, if the based on this again remains irrespective of the continuous fluctuation. Now, next next is advantage of stable dividend policy. Now, what is the advantage of stable dividend policy? Is basically here it is a sign of continued normal operations of the company. It stabilizes the market value of shares. It creates confidence among shareholders. It provides a source of livelihood to investors who view dividends as a source of funds to meet day-to-day expenses. It meets the requirements of institutional investors who prefer companies with stable dividends. It contributes to national income and growth of economy. It helps in raising additional finances. So basically these are the advantages that the stable dividend policies provide to the shareholders of the company. Now, what are the disadvantages or the dangers? Are nothing but it is sometimes dangerous, because once you have adopted a stable dividend policy, even if you do not have profits, even if the company is going in loss, you will have to pay certain amount of percentage of dividend irrespective of the earnings. And also this adversely affects the market share of the market price of the shares, and if the companies pay stable dividend in spite of its incapacity, then it will suffer in long run, and also the company will have to shut down and it will lose its market value also. Now, next type is nothing but bonus shares. Okay, next is bonus shares. Now, what is bonus? Bonus means something which is extra out of the earnings. Okay, extra dividend which is paid to the shareholders in a joint stock company from your surplus profits, from your extra profits irrespective of the earnings. Okay. Now, when the company has accumulated a large fund out of the profits much beyond its needs, then the company will, distribute shareholders certain amount of bonus, that is extra amount of money, and this will not have any because of this particular thing. It might have an adverse effect on the working capital, because instead of distributing as bonus, you can at least save it as a retained earnings, but the company will choose to send it as bonus in order to increase the motivation of the shareholders. Okay, and this is known as bonus shares. Now, what are the advantages of the bonus share to the company? You will have maintenance of liquidity. You will have enhancing prestige. Okay, when you are paying extra bonuses, you will enhance the prestige of the particular company, and you will be having the cheapest source or a cheapest method of raising additional finance for the expansion of business, widening the share of market, and only way to pay dividends under financial difficulties. Contractual restrictions. Okay, these are basically your advantage of bonus shares to the particular company. Okay, now your advantage of bonus shares to the shareholders is nothing but they will have necessary tax savings, psychological value, and capital gains. Okay, now why is it tax saving? Is basically here the company will pay dividends in the form of cash, and when dividends are paid in form of cash, they would not have to pay extra amount of taxes, etc. Psychological value is basically they will have good impact on the investors while you are getting extra bonuses and dividends and fixed percentage of dividends, whereas capital gains, it basically adds to it adds value to the earnings of the shareholders. Next is that disadvantage of bonus shares to the company is nothing but it prevents the investors from becoming the shareholders. Whoever is investing, it will prevent them from becoming the shareholders of the company. It may lead to misuse of the management power, payment of stock dividend is costly when compared to cash dividend. Okay, now to the shareholders, your disappointment because they are expecting a receive of dividend in the form of cash, and they they are receiving dividend lower to the market value, and also less security to investors because of the reduction in reserves. Next is you have your stock split. Now, what is the stock split? Stock split is nothing but an increase in the number of shares outstanding by the reducing value of the stock. For example, shares rupees 10, okay, may split into rupees 5, 2 shares of 5 each. Okay, total 1 share will get split into 2. That is 10 rupees share will get in split 2 parts, that is 5 each. Okay, now another version of stock split is reverse split. Okay, the procedure is typically used by companies with low share prices that would likely to increase these prices, either gain more respectably in the market or to prevent the company from being delisted. Okay, now reasons for stock split is basically to make trading more attractive. Now if you're telling you purchase 2 shares for rupees 10 each, for rupees 5 each, 1 share 5 each, it will attract more and more customers. This is a kind of marketing strategy. Next is to give a higher dividend, because if you're purchasing each share of rupees 5 each, you are getting higher dividend for each and every share. For amount of every share, for each share you get dividend. But if you have 1 share of 10 rupees, you get only 1 dividend. But if you have 2 shares of 5 each, which is contributing to 10, then you will get higher dividend. Okay, after your dividend policy, your next topic is your dividend theories. Now in your dividend theory, the first one is relevance theory. Now relevance theory is basically states that dividend decision of the firm affects the value of the firm considerably. This school of thought includes Myron Gordon, John Linter, James Walter, and Richardson. Okay, according to them, dividends communicate information to investors about the firm's profitability, and hence dividend decision become relevant. Okay, it is telling how they are contributing towards the contribution of the company, and also how the dividend decision become more relevant. Also, those firms which pays higher dividend will also get greater values compared to those who do not pay dividends and get lower dividend payout ratio. Your first model is basically, under your theories, it is Walter's model. Now under your Walter's model, it is nothing but this is a model which is Professor James E. Walter has strongly stated that the choice of dividend policy always affects the value of the firm. Whatever kind of dividend policy you're choosing, as we studied earlier, whichever policy you're choosing, whether it is you want to pay dividends in form of stocks, or whether you want to pay in bonus or cash dividend, etc., whichever policy you're selecting, it is going to affect the value of the firm. And also he's strongly arguing how it affects and how it is establishing a relationship between firm, that is return, how it contributes between return and what is the cost of capital. It is contributing a relationship, and he's given a few assumptions. There are few assumptions of Walter's model. Firstly, it is saying that the life of the firm is infinite. Okay, that is long life, constant dividend and earnings per share, total payout of retention, and financing of retained reserves. Okay, basically he is only telling that how you can retain your particular earnings, and how you can contribute towards the growth and development, how you are financing from your retained earnings. These are the assumptions which is given as per this particular model. Now, what are the assumptions of Walter's model? These are assumptions as per other particular theory of Walter, and these are assumptions on base of Walter's model. Okay, the firm finances its entire investment by means of retained earnings only. Internal rate of return R, the cost of capital K, remains constant. Okay, after which the firm's earnings are either distributed as dividend or reinvested internally. The firm has a very long life. Okay, but at times it is not necessary that the company will have a long life, because the company would want to wind up if they do not have enough earnings and if they lose out on the market share. Okay, next is the limitations of Walter's model is nothing but they are assuming that the firm's investments are purely financed by retained earnings. So this model is only applicable to all the entity firms. The assumptions are as constant are not realistic. Okay, whatever assumptions are made by this particular model are not realistic, and the assumptions of constant K, that is cost of capital, ignores the effect on the risk of value of the firm. They are not taking into consideration whatever the risk which is associated with this particular value of the firm. Next, you have criticism for the Walters model. Now, the criticism for the Walters model is basically here the model is assuming that the investment opportunities of the firm are financed by retained earnings only, and the firm should avoid external financing. They are only taking into consideration the retained earnings, and they're not taking external financing from the other people, from the other people who want to come and invest in the company. Now, if this situation persists, either the firm's investment or a dividend policy, both will be suboptimal. Okay, it will go down. Now, Walters model also assumes that the cost of capital K and the dividend and earnings per share remains constant. Okay, these are the assumptions. Now, Walters formula: P is equal to D divided by K plus R into EPS minus D divided by K into K with the whole divided by K. Whereas P is the market price per share, D is the dividend per share, EPS is earning per share, R is rate of return, and K is the cost of capital. Now, Walters model types of firm. There are in this particular model, he's given various firms, that is growth firm, normal firms, and declining firms. Okay. Now, what is your growth firm? Wherein R is greater to K. R is your cost of capital is greater to the return or rate of return. May be referred as greater growth opportunities, as because these firms are giving you a greater return more than what the shareholders should earn on their own. Now, normal firms is wherein K is equal to R, R is equal to K, wherein both the return and the cost is equal, and the dividend policy will not have any influence on the price per share. After which you have declining firm, wherein the rate, okay, wherein basically the company earns return which is less than whatever they've invested, what is less than the cost. So here there is no chance of getting any sort of retained earnings. So in your next video we will be beginning with your illustration problems. Thank you for watching.